What's going on, archery enthusiasts and bow hunters? Welcome to the channel, brand new channel. Originally, I was going to be making these videos and sending them to Troy, aka Ranch Fairy. He has since, after discussing with him, kind of talked me into starting my own channel to kind of help get some of this information out there. What we're going to be doing here today is, first off, I guess I need to back up a little bit. I was one of the two people selected to join in on the Texas Hog Hunt, the raffle that the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation put on. It was kind of promoted by Troy to go down and shoot hogs in Texas. And originally, I was not one of the two people selected. There was originally another guy that had been chosen, but I found out 3 weeks prior to this hunt taking place that that individual could not make it, and therefore I was selected. I was called by Rob Nielson, who's the president of the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation, to be notified that I had won if I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, and of course I did. While I was down there, there were a lot of really cool things that happened. For one, I am a pretty avid bow hunter. Been hunting large game and Washington State in the United States. Actually, just pretty much Washington State. I haven't really done any out-of-state hunting from the time I was about probably 16, 17. I'm 36 now, so about 20 years. Of course, there were large gaps in that timeline where I was not hunting, but for the most part, been pulling a bow pretty much exclusively ever since. I enjoy the unique challenges that are presented by hunting game with a bow versus hunting them with a rifle. I've always been the kind of guy that enjoys getting in nice and close. My longest shot on any large game species was 49 yards, and that was about 4 years ago. 2 days towards the end of season, still hadn't filled my deer tag, and with me owning a company and just having day-to-day life stuff going on, just really had kind of a limited year that year for getting out and actually hunting. And so I took advantage of an opportunity that I typically would not take advantage of, and shot a little further than what I would typically shoot. And everything went well under plan A, right? And so while I was down there in Texas, kind of getting to network with Troy and, kind of learn more about his process. And I've been familiar with the Natal study and at Dr. Ashby's 12 factors for arrow penetration. I was familiar with Doc Ashby's work and the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation. Getting to put faces to a lot of these works and hear some of Doc's stories and whatnot in person, and I'll try to link Troy's video if I can figure out how to do that. Getting to sit there and kind of pick Doc's brain for hours on end was just absolutely fantastic. And I learned an incredible amount of, information and material. And so what I did, I had a new goal kind of coming forward, and, I've always had one of those super inquisitive minds. I want to understand, why things work the way that they work, and experience stuff for myself. As a kid growing up, I was never the parenting style, you can't do this, never worked on me. I always wanted to find out why I couldn't do it, and ultimately it led to me getting in a lot of trouble, right? But, so kind of learning about a lot of those things and trying to discover the reasons why for myself has always been something that attracted me. Always been pretty good kind of working with my hands and whatnot. And I was one of those kids that, while everybody else was playing Nintendo 64 and video games and stuff, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so, I found my time, with Kinects and Legos and Lincoln Logs and stuff like that. And I've always kind of enjoyed building something and being very, very hands-on. And so typically prior to meeting Doc, I had two primary arrow setups in this one right here. Okay, so this is 478 grains, 3 fletch. This is a Black Eagle X Impact 300 spine. I believe I'm sitting right at 19.5 or 20% FOC on that. And then this is my typical hunting arrow right here. Okay, so this is a Sirius Orion 250 spine. I believe, I know total arrow weight on this right now is 576 grains. This is what I would use traditionally to hunt elk and stuff. And, things have always worked well for me. Like I said, I've been pulling a bow for a while. And so plan A has usually always been good enough for me. There have been circumstances where I got like bad hits or didn't recover animals. Every bow hunter on the face of the earth has done that. But ultimately what I want to do is kind of build like a plan B type arrow for those circumstances where I maybe don't get the best shot and, kind of run into heavy bone. And what kind of got me started going down this rabbit hole is you'll see a lot of, discussion and arguments and stuff online. The light, fast arrow guys that want to shoot, 90, 100 yards or whatever. That's all well and good on foam. My personal opinion is that if you have to rely on shooting, 70, 80, 90 yards to be able to successfully harvest, wild game, that you probably... You've gotten the skill set that you need as an archer, but you need to work on your skill set as a bow hunter. And I'm not, saying that to like point fingers at anybody. Years ago when I first picked up a bow, of course, that whole challenge of getting within that effective killing distance. I too have been, one of those people that I would probably classify as not being the greatest bow hunter in the world. By taking 70 and 80 yard shots on wild game. And what I've learned in my time doing so is no matter how light, how fast your arrow is, you're never going to beat the animal. At 60 yards, if an arrow's traveling 300 feet per second, it's roughly 3/4 of a second of flight time. And even if the animal does not know that you're there, doesn't hear your bow go off, doesn't hear the arrow on its way to them, doesn't catch wind of you, doesn't see you, so much can happen, especially on like a large species like elk, that spend a lot of time moving while they're in rut, that can take that shot from being a perfectly placed arrow and, like one sequence of steps can carry them 3 yards, and they can cover that in a second, no problem. And then you've got, basically like a rear, or a gut shot, rear ham shot, and so it's always been my approach to get well within 30, 40 yards, to just kind of maximize the time that I spend in the woods. Because let's face it, we all spend an absolute amount of time, building these arrows, tuning our bows, practicing with them, in the off season, buying, gear and stuff to like cover up scents and to help us blend in with our environments. A lot of time, energy, attention, detail, blood, sweat, and tears has gone into that one specific moment when you're at full draw. Next to your game species of choice, and to have it all just completely wiped away in that 3/4 of a second has never really sat well with me. And I'm like 95% of bow hunters out there, okay, so I don't get like months on end to just basically go live in the woods and chase game species. I own a company, a pretty successful tree service out here. Anybody that's in the audience that owns a company or has a family will tell you that a lot of time and energy and attention and detail goes into maintaining just your day-to-day life. And hunting for the most part is something that we all thoroughly enjoy. There's probably a very, very small, minuscule demographic of people currently living in the country outside of Alaska that probably is on like some sort of subsistence type hunting where they have to hunt in order to survive. I don't think most of us would fall under that pretense, but I'm sure there are people, that do. For me, hunting has always been a hobby and it's been a passion, and it's been something I thoroughly enjoyed, and it's been a great way to kind of decompress from the pressures that build up throughout the year, and to just kind of basically essentially get primal with things. And I want to enjoy it while I'm out there. And we all go out there with the expectation of filling a tag, and anybody that's decided to bow hunt for more than a year has learned that that's not always the case. And so some of what I really enjoy about that whole process is the challenge itself. And so wanting to maximize my opportunities is kind of where we're going here. And so I spent a lot of time talking with Rob Nielson, president of the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation, especially about his wife Rhonda, who's a low poundage, low draw weight shooter. He's got pictures of her getting full penetration and pass-throughs on nilgai, which are really large animals, equivalent, if not bigger, than the size of most elk that we find in this area, or pretty close to it. She pulls, I believe it was 45 pounds or somewhere in the ballpark of that, with like a 24 or 25 inch draw. And she fits pretty perfectly to my wife's bow. My wife was 25.5 inch draw, and she currently is pulling 47 pounds. And, I have had circumstances with my VXR pulling 75 pounds with a 27.5 inch draw. shooting kind of a lighter arrow setup where I would see the animal running away, especially most notably elk, with like veins and stuff sticking out. You still got full penetration, but if a woman that is the wife of the president of the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation can get full penetration with 2 holes, pulling 30 less pounds with 2 to 2.5, maybe 3 inches less draw length, why can't I get that? And after spending a lot of time speaking with Troy and Doc and picking their brains, I decided that what I was going to do was come back here and build something more akin to like a 12 factor arrow. It's technically going to be an 11 factor arrow because I'm not going to be using tapered shafts. And kind of hearing their stories and stuff, I also got to meet a guy named Jeremy Johnson, which a few of you may be familiar with by name. If you don't, you should definitely look him up. Go to bowhuntingsuccess.com. He's got a book called Can't Lose Bow Hunting, and it is chock full of information. Even if you don't hunt elk, there's something in there for you. And honestly, even if you don't hunt with a bow, there's something in there for you as well. A lot of information and stuff in there. I wish I could say I've read it cover to cover, but I'm probably about like maybe 70 or 80 pages away from finishing the book. A lot of good info in there, but the thing that really stuck out to me while I was talking with Jeremy is, I asked him what does he attribute most of his success to as an elk hunter, and there were a couple different answers to that, but the one that I really kind of took away from him was when we were discussing his arrow setup. And I believe he's, if memory serves correctly, which don't quote me on it, he's just north of 700 grains or very close to it. High FOC, cut on contact, 3-to-1, cut ratio on his broadheads. He had stories and pictures of basically shooting elk hard quarter 2, which is like every elk hunter's worst nightmare. You're in peak rut and you've spent, a couple hours throwing challenge bugles at a masher bull, and they never come into you sideways. They come in pretty much, almost head on. And so that frontal shot has always been, you got a thoracic opening, which, has served well in years past, but there's times where they'll kind of come at you at kind of a hard quarter shot. And, when that happens, what do? You let down, try to feather something in right up against the humerus ball. Jeremy says that there's not a shot that he doesn't worry or that he worries about taking anymore, just because he knows he has an arrow, time proven, with multiple such circumstances to experience that it works. And he has stories and pictures of basically severing the humerus ball or splitting it, getting full penetration into heart and watching the elk go like 30-40 yards and pile up. He says the biggest downside to what he currently does now is he oftentimes does not find his arrows. He'll get full penetration even on hard quartered shots while they'll exit out in front of the rear hip, and he just never recovers his arrow. He calls it the cost of doing business. And if there's a way to make that possible, and me being of the mindset where, hey, I want to maximize my opportunity. If I get that hard quarter 2 shot, I want to be able to take those shots, and I want to be able to know that I have enough basically to put that elk on my dinner table later on that night. And so what you guys are going to see me doing here is there's going to be a collective of small videos. This is my first time, kind of trying to put like a full length video or anything together. So I'm going to give you that disclaimer here and now. A lot of it was spent working by myself. There are very few circumstances where I'll have my wife holding the camera or somebody associated with this project holding the camera. For the most part, it's basically just setting things up on a tripod and trying to get the best angle I possibly can. But we're going to work together and go down Doc Ashby's 12 factors, omitting the tapered shafts, right? Because I'm going to be using parallel shafts. We're going to work together, and I'm going to show you kind of my way for achieving that end result. There's been a lot of stigma about the 650 grains thing, and I think a lot of people are hung up on the fact that 650 grains, yes, it is a heavier arrow than most people typically shoot, but Doc never once said that you have to have an arrow north of 650 grains to kill an animal. Troy himself has said that he would much rather shoot, a 500 grain arrow that has perfect arrow flight than shoot a 650 plus grain arrow that, doesn't have perfect arrow flight. So there's a hierarchy basically to those 12 factors, and we're going to address them together. What the 650 grain thing means is if you have those 11 other factors and 650 grains is arrow mass is factor 12. But what that basically means is if you have all those other factors in place first and foremost, starting with, structural integrity, perfect arrow flight, high FOC, et cetera, 650 grains is the heavy bone threshold. So if you have those 11 other factors and you also have an arrow that weighs north of 650 grains, they get 1-to-1 odds on being able to breach heavy bone. And so that's ultimately where we're going to try and be at the end of this video. Obviously, we'll have to be a little bit more than 650 to kind of make up for the tapered shaft, but I will be using micro diameter 4mm arrows, which I think may not be as perfect as a tapered shaft setup, but it's probably the closest thing that we're going to have in this project. And so what you'll see me doing is addressing first and foremost structural integrity. We're going to make sure that we're using good quality components. Can't fail, because as soon as any part of that arrow system fails, it's an energy dump and you're losing momentum through your target. And we're also going to be addressing perfect arrow flight. And so perfect arrow flight starts at the bow. That's your spring. That's how you launch your projectile. And so you'll see me tuning my bow, getting everything completely set up to perfect center shot, 13/16 off the riser, right through the center of the burger buttonhole, making sure my cam lean is perfect, timing is perfect at draw stops, all that kind of stuff, because if any of that is out of whack, you're basically leaving something on the table to be desired. Of course, you can really, for the most part, within reason, tune any arrow to pretty much any bow, but by taking your rest out of center shot to make the arrow fly right, you are essentially leaving opportunity for kinetic energy and momentum, which is the big factor, on the table by taking things out of as efficient as they could possibly be, because these manufacturers recommend certain specs for a reason, and it's because it's where you get the most performance out of the bow. And so what you'll see me doing is, with me, my wife, a couple of my buddies, their wives, that kind of a thing, people associated with this hunting party, you won't see me tuning their bows. Just know that their bows are tuned the exact same way that I tune mine. Brands all have different ways of achieving the ultimate same end goal, but just know the same love and attention went into every single bow that you will see me do in mine. And then we're going to be doing some arrow tuning. So basically tuning the arrow by playing with the spine, by shortening the carbon up and reading the tears through paper, to get that perfect arrow flight, that perfect arrow for the way that my bow is set up. And then we will dive right into arrow making and building essentially an 11-factor arrow. And hopefully we'll be able to follow it up at the end of the year with some harvest reports, some video, and some pictures and stuff of exactly what these things have done to the animals that we chose to harvest with them. So I ask that you guys, if it sounds interesting to you, go ahead and give this video a like, give it a subscribe, give it a thumbs up, follow the channel. There's going to be a lot of info in here. You'll see, my at-home kind of pro shop, archery shop. Like I said, I've been pulling a bow for a while, and I've always been the kind of guy that I like working on my own stuff and being self-sufficient. So there'll be some technical kind of how-to stuff to kind of follow along with. And I just hope that we have a good time. If you guys ever have anything that could maybe help make things easier on me, definitely share those with me. I'm an open book, and I'm open-minded about stuff, which is ultimately why I'm doing this process. I know that my previous arrow setups have worked well for me. There have been circumstances where they basically fell short on the performance end of things, and so trying to find that ultimate, performance and that happy place between, what I want to shoot, how I intend to shoot it, and what I want out of that specific setup. I'm always kind of modifying and tweaking things to find the best scenario that I possibly can. And a part of that is learning, right? And so I didn't get to the point where I'm at now by being closed-minded and not taking advice and information from those that have something to contribute. The one thing I would say is there's a pretty big difference if you want people to perceive you and hear what you're saying. There's a big difference between, hey, you're an idiot, why the hell would you do something like this, versus, you do things a little bit different. I've always done it this way, and then opening up a constructive dialogue and conversation about it. I'm pretty thick-skinned. There's not really anything anybody's going to be able to say that's going to cause me to be upset or whatever, but I am always looking for opportunities to grow and learn and develop, and so if you have something to share, would love to hear about it and have a discussion with you on it. So without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 1, bow tuning.